Aloha, my loves, and welcome back to Soulful Wahine, your safe space for all things mental health through a Polynesian lens. Before we hop into anything, I just want to take the time to acknowledge that I've been gone almost 5 months. And, you know, instead of jumping right into a different topic or just kind of acting like my absence didn't happen, I want to start today's conversation off with honesty, and I want today's episode to be about what it's like when life becomes unstable and you don't know how to show up for yourself or you don't know how to show up for your goals. And so, if you are someone that has had to put a pause on something important in your life because, I don't know, life was lifing and things just kind of got rocky, I want you to get comfy and just sit back because today's conversation is for you. Hopping right into it, if you guys know me or if you've been here for a while, you know that I don't do surface level conversations. And you also know that I don't like to perform growth for others. And so today's episode is a reflection and focuses on what happens, when our external goals outpace the internal stability that we have. This episode focuses on what happens when, our routines collapse and our confidence begins to wither and feel thinner over time. In my work, I have realized that majority of the time people don't just quit. They over time slowly just begin to disconnect and kind of fall back. And so for today, that is what I want to unpack. The falling back and the slow disconnect because I feel like a lot of us don't recognize when that part of the process is happening. So, who is this episode for? This episode is specifically for you if you've ever delayed something important to you because life felt messy. This episode is for you if you've ever gone quiet on things when things felt too emotionally overwhelming. It's for you if you're high functioning but internally feeling stretched thin. You hold yourself to high standards and struggle to be seen mid process. And this episode is for you, especially if you're the strong one, or if you are someone that the people in your life always assume that you're fine or that you have it together. So, what are we really talking about? Because, in these past few minutes, I've kind of said a few different things. Today, we're going to be unpacking what my slow season really looked like, the difference between burnout and avoidance. We're going to talk about how self-sabotage hides inside of, the guise of being responsible. We're going to unpack how shame compounds silence. And we're also going to talk about how we can rebuild without waiting for perfection. Because one thing that I have learned through my slow season or through these last 5 months, folks, is slow seasons usually aren't random. They're usually protective, they're usually happening for a reason. And so it's just up to us to get curious about what those reasons could possibly be. So, the reason that I disappeared, I didn't stop recording because I ran out of ideas. I mean, hell, if anything, all I have is ideas running in my brain 24/7. But really, I stepped back because my life felt unstable and there were a lot of shifts and changes happening personally and professionally. And so basically, what happened with all of those changes is that my routines no longer were consistent. And as someone who is a creature of habit, I need routines. Routines make my world go round. And when my routines started to become inconsistent and kind of just went all over the place, my ability to tolerate distress or my ability to emotionally regulate myself diminished pretty badly. Okay. And sure as hell didn't feel grounded. And for me, again, if you know me and if you've been here for a long time, you know that I value authenticity. You know that I value genuineness. And there was no way that I could get up here, sit on this mic, and talk to you guys about tools and teaching you guys things while literally in my own life, chaos was fucking unfolding. If you know me, you know for a fact that I don't believe in doing anything half-ass. Either I'm going to do it fully or I'm not going to do it at all. And the fact that I couldn't even show up for myself, it made it harder for me to want to show up for this, to want to show up for my podcast. Because honestly, I equate my ability to show up with my stability. And I didn't feel stable at all. And so, again, because I didn't feel stable in my life, I didn't think that it would be okay for me to sit up here and record all these episodes when I wasn't really feeling it or when I wasn't in the headspace to be teaching anything. When I sit here and I reflect and I think about how I say that life was hectic or life got messy. When I say that my life was hectic, I don't mean that, I was busy. I What I mean is that, again, my structure fell apart. My gym routine wasn't consistent. My content rhythm disappeared. I don't know if any of you guys are into content creating, but this shit is hard, and when you set up a routine for things, again, I am a creature of habit. I follow my routines. And when my routines were falling through, it just felt like my whole world got turned upside down. My sleep and my energy fluctuated. And honestly, I felt really reactive. Like I felt so on edge that I felt like I was always bracing for something to be wrong, or I was always waiting for someone to fuck me over or for someone to just say some stupid shit. And so I recognized that I was like very much on edge. I was just hyper aware, you know? And again, for me, when my foundational habits, when my foundational routines begin to shift and are no longer consistent, everything for me personally does feel hard. I'm sipping my drink because, guys, I'm nervous as fuck. I haven't done an episode in 5 months. Now, I want to talk about the part that not many people typically recognize or they don't really acknowledge. And that part is self sabotage. For me, the chaos wasn't the problem. Okay. So, like, all the routines and all of that falling apart wasn't the problem. The way that I was responding to those things falling apart was the problem. That's where my self sabotage came in. Because instead of tightening my structure, I loosened it. Instead of simplifying my commitments, I stalled on all of them. And instead of stabilizing one area at a time, I literally pulled back from everything completely. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I haven't really posted anything on the Soulful Wahine page. I haven't posted anything new on my TikTok, on my YouTube. Like, when I tell you I pulled back completely, there is no other words to describe it. And again, for me, that's where my self sabotage started. It wasn't loud, but it was subtle. And that's what makes self sabotage so dangerous. Self sabotage can happen very quietly. And for me, my self sabotage didn't look reckless, in the sense that like my self sabotage was reasonable, meaning I've told myself things like, like, oh, I'll record when I feel, more present and more grounded, or I need to get my routines together, or it wouldn't be authentic for me to show up like this. And again, these things weren't reckless. All of these things made sense. However, at the same time, all of these excuses that I told myself delayed me from taking action. And so, literally, what turned into what was supposed to be like a 1-2 week break ended up turning into a 5-month hiatus that, honestly, guys, I'm still kind of working through some of the shame that I feel for disappearing for as long as I did. And through this process, through this journey of me slowing down and really having to take a look at things, I recognized that what I was chasing after was control. I was trying to control my situation in whatever way that I could because there were so many factors that were out of my control. And so for me, I kept telling myself, like if I could just get my schedule perfect, if I could feel emotionally ready, if I could have clarity again, if I could regain that momentum that I had when I first began Soulful Wahine, then I'd be able to show up. But the funny thing is growth rarely ever happens in perfectly controlled seasons. Waiting for full control, again, became a part of my self sabotage because it became a way for me to delay things. It became a way for me to push things to the back burner and honestly not have to deal with them. I want to go back to the shame piece that I mentioned because, like I said, I value authenticity, I value being genuine, and I'll be real with you guys. Even as I'm sitting here recording this episode, I do still feel a lot of shame for disappearing. 5 months is a long time, and I have so many people who have just been so supportive of this entire movement, of this entire project, that honestly, when I sit here and I think about the last 5 months and how I kind of just let Soulful Wahine go on the back burner, that's the one main emotion that comes up is shame. And I recognize that the longer I stayed gone, the harder it felt for me to return. I can't even tell you guys how many times I've wanted to sit down and record this episode or just record a episode. But my shame would tell me things, you know? And so it made it hard to return. And like I said, at first I told myself, like, you know what? It's okay to take a break. I just need a week. But then that turned into, damn, it's been about a month since I've posted anything or really interacted with anyone on Soulful Wahine's page. And then that shifted into, I've been gone so long that it's almost fucking awkward to try to return. And again, that shame, it grew in silence. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, my shame made me avoid the very things that make me feel good and make me feel confident. And so it's an active battle that I have to push past this shame and embarrassment because I want to show up for you guys. I want to be here. I want to be a part of this community that I created. And yeah, it's hard. I want to touch on a pattern that I have been able to recognize within myself, through this process, and that I've recognized that when things feel messy or when things feel unstable in my life, I pull back. This is not something new that I've like really learned, but it's new in the sense of I've learned how my self sabotage shows up and how my shame plays a role. But again, if you know me personally, you know that I'm the type of person when shit hits the fan, I disappear. My misery does not like company. I struggle to be around people when I am going through things. I struggle to ask for help when I am going through things. And so the easiest way that I know how to take care of myself and protect myself is to just completely fall back and go MIA. And I've touched on this in previous episodes because, again, this is a pattern of mine that I am still actively working on, but I had to recognize that in order for me to truly heal and grow, I have to learn how to accept help. I have to learn how to ask for help. And I have to learn how to not completely draw all the way back. Does that make sense? Since recognizing this pattern of mine, one thing that I've been really trying to do instead of shame myself is try to reframe the way that I see things, or try to reframe just the thoughts that I'm having. Or instead of looking at this slow season as a failure, I've been trying to reflect and reframe on maybe this slow season is actually feedback. You know, maybe the fact that I am being slowed down right now, maybe it's giving me the feedback that maybe I need to just check in, look at my systems, and recognize that maybe I need to make some tweaks and changes somewhere. I feel like this slow season could also possibly be feedback that honestly, my habits need more structure, or maybe even my structure needs to change. And that's not a negative thing, you know, it's just information to really think of and be mindful of. Honestly, when I sit here and I talk about this, when I sit here and I think of slow seasons, it's so funny because I'm going to share something personal with you guys. So, when I first graduated, after graduating with your social work degree, in order to practice clinically, you need to be licensed. And so, in order to become licensed, you have to pass a clinical exam. And the way that it was set up during my time was that once you graduated, you had two options. You could either take the master's level exam, and once you pass that, you get your licensure, and then you have to work towards your hours. But then after you complete your hours, you have to come back and take the clinical exam. That was option one. Option two was you could take the clinical exam, even though it is a lot harder. And once you pass, though, all you have to do is get your hours. Excuse me. All you have to do is get your hours. And then once you get your hours and you submit them, then you are fully licensed. Okay. Like you don't have to go back for a second exam. And so when I found that out, I was like, I'm going to do the clinical exam. Yeah. I'm not a good test taker. I'm not at all. And so if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I failed the clinical exam 2 times before I finally passed. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, it took me a while to work through the shame of admitting that I had failed twice, because honestly it got to the point where I was just like, okay, like what's going on? Like why am I failing? Like I'm studying, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. Why is this not happening for me? And it eventually got to a point where I even was like, wow, did I choose the wrong major? Like did I choose the wrong career path? Because for whatever reason, it feels like I'm retaining the same information, but I don't feel confident about going into this test the third time. And I remember after I failed the second time, I remember when I called my mom, like I cried and I was just like, I don't understand why this is happening. I don't get it, mom, like I'm studying, I'm doing everything that I was supposed to be doing, and it just didn't feel like I was ever going to get it. And I just remember my mom telling me, she was like, hun, like, I'm so sorry. And she just like told me, she's like, sometimes I feel like God or the universe, sometimes I feel like they pump our brakes because maybe we're ready for something or we think we're ready for something, but we're actually not. And I remember, like, at first I got kind of upset with my mom because I was like, what do you mean I'm not ready? Like, I've been practicing already as a therapist, I've been doing things, like, I work as a therapist, it's just this clinical exam. And she was like, no, hun. She's like, I'm just saying maybe right now is not your time. And the thing is, with the clinical exams, you have to wait 90 days in order to retest. So after I failed the first and second times, it was a 3-month waiting period. And I was still able to work and practice as a therapist during like the time after the first failure. And so when I went in for the second time to take the exam, me not passing that exam, I unfortunately had to leave my job because the license that I was practicing under was only going to be valid for 6 months. And so basically, what had happened was my plans got put on pause. And I just remember feeling so down, so low, and again, kind of angry with my mom and being like, okay, why would she say that? Like, why do I need to get my brakes pumped? Like, I'm enjoying being a therapist. What is this? And it's funny because 5 years later, when I look back at that whole experience, I needed to get my brakes pumped because when I look back at the first 6 months of my career as a therapist, I jumped in head first. Like, I think I was seeing 8 clients a day for 4 days a week. So yeah, I was averaging 32 clients or around closer to 30, 29, 30 clients a week, but that's still a pretty heavy caseload, especially for, a baby therapist. And I just threw myself in head first and I enjoyed it, but I recognized that when I look back at that, had I continued on that path, I was kind of 100%, or yeah, not even kind of, I was on a path straight for burnout. And so, of course, hindsight is always 2020, but again, relating this back to what we're talking about today, what if our slow seasons aren't failures? But again, what if they're necessary? What if they're here to teach us things or here to highlight things in our life that maybe might need a little more structure or might just need some tuning up? So, while I was, going through this slow season or through this pause, as I like to call it, something that I had to accept, or some of the things that I had to accept, was that I don't need to be fully regulated to show up. I really just need to be honest and transparent. I don't need my life to look perfect. I just need systems that are going to be sustainable for me long term. And leadership isn't always about, being ahead or, just really being in the front. Sometimes it's really just about being real and honest with the people around you. And so, moving forward, what I have told myself that I'm going to be doing differently is that instead of waiting for inspiration or, waiting for things to fall into place and be just right, I'm prioritizing structures and, again, sustainable systems for me that are going to work long term. I'm separating my worth from performance, so I'm no longer going to shame myself if I'm not able to show up the way that I want to. I'm learning how to regulate before I retreat, before I disappear, because one thing that I've learned about that and about my avoidance is it can honestly be detrimental to relationships. And I don't want that. And so I'm learning how to regulate. I'm learning how to stay in the moment before I just completely pull back. And I'm allowing growth to happen while I'm still in the process. Meaning, while I'm going through this slow season, instead of just hiding myself away and continuing to do what I've been doing the past few months, I'm going to show up for you guys. I'm going to practice my growth. I'm going to practice what I preach and really make space for growth while still kind of going through the process myself. I want to take some time to do a quick little reflection. If you've been quiet on something you care about, I want you to ask yourself some of these questions. Is this rest or resistance? Is this healing or hiding? Am I protecting my peace or am I protecting my pride? And what would it look like to start showing up imperfectly instead of disappearing? I want to throw out there, sis, that a lot of times avoidance often feels safe in the short term, but long term, it can actually shrink your confidence. So I just want you to think about that, okay? As we close out, a big reason that I pulled back was because I didn't feel safe being visible while my life felt unstable. I didn't feel safe letting you guys see me go through things or letting you guys see me when I didn't feel at my best. And so, in the next episode, we're going to be going deeper into the topic of safety. We're going to talk about what it actually feels like in the body and how to relearn safety without shrinking ourselves. As we close out, folks, I just want to say thank you so much for still being here with me after my long break. 5 months is such a long time, and to see the continuous messages, the follows, the episode downloads throughout these 5 months, it has warmed my heart in ways that you guys will never truly understand. And I just want to take this time to really let each and every one of you know that I'm so grateful for you. I'm so thankful you're here. You will never know how much your support means to me. I love you all. And until next time, mahalo and aloha.